Hello. I am Christopher Columbus. Do you know me? I couldn't hear. Anyway, we will get to know each other in this video. I will tell you about my 54 years filled with adventures. Lean back in your seat and get ready to embark on a journey of exploration with me. I was born in 1451 in Genoa. My father was a wool merchant, and I grew up with my mother, Susanna Fontanarosa. I belonged to a poor family, so I had to work. At a young age, I chose seafaring and started working on a trading ship. I set sail at the age of 14. Throughout the years I spent at sea, I embarked on many adventures. During one of my voyages, pirates attacked my ship off the coast of Portugal, and it sank. However, I managed to reach the shore on a piece of driftwood. This incident further strengthened my courage and determination. I met and married my first love, Filipa Moniz Perestrelo, who was a noblewoman from Portugal. We lived in Lisbon for a few years. During my time there, I immersed myself in reading books on astronomy, science, and navigation, educating myself. I was also fluent in writing and speaking Latin, Portuguese, and Spanish. Life granted me the gift of my firstborn son, Diego Columbus. A handsome boy was born into the world. Later, my second son, Ferdinand Columbus, was born. In the late 15th century, I realized the challenges of reaching Asia from Europe by land. The journey was long, dangerous, and posed the risk of encountering enemy armies. Portuguese explorers attempted to reach Asia by sailing south along the African coast. However, I had a different idea. I believed that I could reach Asia by sailing westward across the Atlantic Ocean. I had devoted a full 18 years to planning this magnificent first voyage of mine. My goal was to find pearls, precious stones, gold, silver, spices, and other objects and products. To guide me on my adventure, I relied on the map of the renowned mathematician, astronomer, geographer, and physician Paolo dal Pozzo Toscanelli. According to this map, there was nothing but a vast ocean between Europe and Africa, leading to Japan. On August 3, 1492, with 90 men and 3 ships, I set sail from Spain towards my dreams. The names of the ships were Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria. Santa Maria was built in the province of Galicia, and my crew referred to it as La Gallega. The ship known as Nina was called Santa Clara by my men, but we had to give it the name Nina due to its owner, Juan Niño. After 33 days at sea, I spotted land that I claimed on behalf of the Spanish monarchs. The New World was now before my eyes, which you know as the Bahamas. However, I did not find the riches I had expected. Nevertheless, during this voyage, I meticulously kept a journal and recorded my initial impressions of the indigenous people. Upon my return, I presented the journal as a gift to Queen Isabella. I had written in my journal during my first voyage from August 3, 1492, to November 6, 1492. Here are my impressions of the first people I encountered. They brought us parrots and balls of cotton and spears and many other things, which they exchanged for the glass beads and hawks' bells. They willingly traded everything they owned. They were well built, with good bodies and handsome features. They do not bear arms, and do not know them, for I showed them a sword. They took it by the edge and cut themselves out of ignorance. They have no iron. They would make fine servants. With 50 men we could subjugate them all and make them do whatever we want. I saw some who had marks of wounds on their bodies, and I made signs to them asking what they were, and they showed me how people from other islands nearby came there and tried to take them, and how they defended themselves. And I believed that they come here terra firm to take them captive. They should be good and intelligent servants, for I see that they say very quickly everything that is said to them. And I believe they would become Christians very easily, for it seemed to me that they had no religion, our Lord pleasing. At the time of my departure, I will take 6 of them from here to your highnesses, in order that they may learn to speak. I had given the name Indian to these people. During this first voyage, I also reached the islands of Cuba and Hispaniola. I stayed in the New World for 4 months, and on October 12, 1492, I discovered America. Unfortunately, on March 15, 1493, my ship Santa Maria ran aground in Hispaniola, and I had to leave behind 42 of my men, whom I had instructed to treat the indigenous people well and show them respect. On the morning of October 2, 1496, 4 years after reaching the New World, I became the governor of the Santo Domingo colony, which encompassed what is now the Dominican Republic. When I returned to Spain, I was received with great enthusiasm. However, some of the nobles couldn't digest the fact that someone as humble as me had achieved such a discovery. They constantly tried to belittle me. During a banquet hosted by the Spanish king, a dialogue took place. The Spanish nobles said to me,
"You have discovered strange lands beyond the sea, but what's the big deal? We don't understand why this is being made into such a huge event. Anyone can sail across the ocean and, just like you did, anyone can land on the shores of the islands on the other side. It's the simplest thing in the world. Even if you hadn't discovered those lands, there would have been many others who would have done it."
Instead of responding with an attack, I asked for an egg and challenged them, saying, "I claim, Your Excellencies, that none of you can make an egg stand upright on the table without any help." Those present tried repeatedly to make the egg stand upright but failed. I took the egg in my hand and gently tapped its pointed end, making it stand upright. Turning to the crowd, I said, "Gentlemen, what could be easier than doing something that you claim is impossible? Once you see how it's done, anyone can do it." They replied to me,
"It's easy to do it that way. Anyone can do it."
I quickly responded, saying, "Yes, of course, the real difficulty is actually being able to think of doing it." I was experiencing the joy of yet another victory. The Spanish government has now commissioned the egg monument on the Ibiza island to keep this memory alive. Despite all these experiences, I didn't enjoy my job because I couldn't make my ideas accepted by my comrades in the colony, especially the nobles. These people didn't care about colonizing this new country. Their only concern was to get rich as quickly as possible and return. For me, wealth was no longer a priority. The promises of riches I gave to the Spanish king were turning into a disaster, instead of the gold I had promised. I sent about 500 enslaved individuals to Queen Isabella. The queen was horrified and immediately and firmly rejected my gift. During my third voyage, I visited Trinidad and the South American mainland, but the conditions became so challenging that the Spanish authorities had to send a new governor. In the year 1500, the inspector sent to the island by the Spanish kingdom arrested me on charges of misconduct of duty. As the explorer of the Americas, I was sent back to Spain in chains on a ship. I spent 7 months in prison awaiting trial. I refused to have my chains removed and even stated in my will that I wanted to be buried with them if I died. I was acquitted of the charges, but my noble titles were stripped away. In 1502, I managed to find sponsors for my final voyage and advanced as far as Panama. However, due to harsh conditions, I had to return. Throughout my life, I had always claimed that one of the reasons behind my explorations was to convert non-believers to Christianity, and as the explorations progressed, I became increasingly devout. With the help of my son Diego and the Carthusian friar Gaspar Goricio, I wrote 2 books before my death, a privileges book detailing and documenting the rewards I believed myself and my heirs were entitled to from the Spanish kingdom, and a prophecies book in which I used passages from the Bible to situate my achievements as an explorer within Christian eschatology. In 1506, as I approached the end of my life in Spain, I passed away at the age of 54 in Valladolid. After my death, my body could not remain in one place. It was initially buried in a monastery in Valladolid, and then, according to the will of my son Diego, it was moved to the La Cartuja monastery in Seville, southern Spain, in 1513. It was exhumed from the grave and reinterred in the Seville Cathedral, around 1536. Both my remains and those of my son Diego were moved to a cathedral in colonial Santo Domingo in present-day Dominica and Republic. In fact, I had wished to be buried on the island. In 1793, when France took control of the entire Hispaniola island, my remains were transferred to the city of Havana in Cuba, after Cuba gained independence following the Spanish-American War in 1898. At least a part of my remains was carefully placed on an elaborately prepared catafalque and taken back to the Seville Cathedral. My explorations had numerous consequences. Ecological provinces that had been fragmented millions of years ago due to the drifting of continents reconnected after my journeys began in 1492. It established relationships between 2 vast regions that had developed independently for thousands of years, the Old World Asia, Europe, and Africa, and the New World North and South America. This union profoundly shaped the history of America, Europe, and Africa in the following centuries. Alfred W. Crosby described this phenomenon as the Columbian Exchange in his book published in 1972. Crosby divided this exchange into three biological categories: diseases, animals, and plants. Diseases such as measles, smallpox, influenza, mumps, typhus, and whooping cough were not present among the Native Americans, indigenous peoples in Eurasia and Africa before 1492. After 1492, these diseases entered the American continent as epidemic diseases. By 1600, the native populations in most islands had greatly declined. Horses, pigs, cattle, goats, sheep, and many other species easily adapted to the conditions in America. With the introduction of these new animals, Native Americans gained access to new sources of leather, wool, and animal protein. Horses and oxen also provided a new means of transportation, allowing for the development of agriculture and the improvement of transportation with wheeled vehicles, which had not been used in America before. The most significant exchange occurred in terms of crops. The products that American farmers provided to other continents included staple foods such as corn, potatoes, cassava, and sweet potatoes, as well as secondary food crops such as tomatoes, peanuts, pumpkins, squash, pineapples, and chili peppers. Tobacco, one of the most important drugs for humans, is another gift from the American continent and has likely caused more deaths in Eurasia and Africa than the diseases brought from those continents to America. From Europe to America, staple food crops such as wheat, rice, rye, and barley were introduced and flourished in America. On the other hand, rice adapted to cultivation areas. Rice, imported from both Asia and Africa, was cultivated with slave labor in places like Suriname and South Carolina until the abolition of slavery by the end of the 19th century. These cereal grains covered a significant portion of arable land in America. In addition to grains, African crops brought to America included watermelon, coffee, and okra. Eurasia's contributions to American menus included fruits such as bananas, oranges, lemons, and other citrus fruits, as well as grapes. In fact, when I died in 1506, I was forgotten by everyone, including the Spaniards and historians, but 300 years later, I was rediscovered by the nation established in the New World. First, in 1738, an English magazine used the name Columbia to refer to the New World, specifically the 13 colonies, meaning Land of Columbus. Jonathan Swift also used the name Columbia in his book Gulliver's Travels. When the decision to separate from England became prominent in the 13 colonies, the founders liked the Latin name Columbia. In 1783, the first state ship of the United States was named Columbia. The places discovered with this ship were also named Columbia. In 1981, when the space shuttle was built, they wanted to reflect my spirit of exploration, so they named it Columbia. After the British were expelled from New York, in 1784, the Royal University of New York changed its name to Columbia University. My name and spirit of exploration started to spread everywhere. In 1791, when the decision was made to build a federal capital that would not be affiliated with any state, they named this capital D.C., which stands for District of Columbia. Later, it was enriched with the name Washington. In 1838, when Washington Irving wrote my biography, I had already become an American legend. On October 12, 1892, the Columbian Exposition Fair opened in Chicago. On the day the fair was opened, President Benjamin Harrison initiated the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance in American schools. This date marked the 400th anniversary of my arrival in the New World. President Harrison declared the day he opened the Columbian Exposition Fair as Columbus Day. This idea was later accepted by the U.S. Congress in 1937, and it became an official holiday in the United States called Columbus Day, celebrated on every October 12th. Later, it was changed to the second Monday of October. However, by 1992, the love for me had started to turn into hatred for some people. This perspective grew stronger every year. Many states and settlements began celebrating the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples' Day instead of Columbus Day. Moreover, these celebrations often turned into protests. As a result, Columbus Day has become a controversial topic in American society and has undergone changes. This reflects the diversity and social sensitivity in American history. I, Christopher Columbus, have found my place in American history. Throughout my life, I aim to make discoveries, push boundaries, and explore new horizons. My voyages have become significant events that bring the world together and are featured in history books. That's how my life unfolded. People like me, who have shaped the world, will always be here with you through this channel. They will try to share their stories with you. Please subscribe to our channel to listen to them in their own narratives, and feel free to leave your questions in the comments, and don't forget to turn on the notifications. I love you all.